people like me. You need people like me so you can point your f***ing fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
News. Okay, we'll start with this straight from the social media page of Overtime Boxing that has a broadcast deal with DAZN. On November 22nd, America's own O'Shea Jones will be challenging champion Femke Hermans for the IBO and IBF junior middleweight world titles. Femke Hermans, one of 2 or 3 reigning champions in the women's junior middleweight division. The other is Slovenia's own Emma Kozin that holds both the WBC and WBO titles. Terry Harper. Seem to still have Terry Harper registered as WBA champion at 154 pounds, even though she just won the WBO title at 135. I'm fairly confident if she hasn't already vacated the WBA title, she will shortly. The WBA's interim champion is Canada's own amateur standout, Mary Spencer. If she hasn't been elevated to full WBA champion already, I anticipate that she will. It's where these champions reign, these fighters campaign, and where this contest is taking place, the one between O'Shea Jones and Femke Hermans for Femke's IBF title. O'Shea Jones, unbeaten up-and-comer that we've talked about once or twice here on the channel, sporting a professional record of 7 wins with no losses, no draws, 3 knockouts. And at least 3 of O'Shea Jones's 7 fights have been fought under the Overtime Boxing banner. Well-to-do outfit that's got a broadcast deal with DAZN, giving unbeaten up-and-comers like O'Shea Jones an opportunity to get out there and show their stuff. This is a big opportunity for her. And she's actually very good, though still flying very low on the radar. Set to take on Femke Hermans towards the end of this month, the vastly more experienced fighter of the two, sporting a professional record of 18 wins with 4 losses, no draws, 7 knockouts, having only ever been knocked out once. In 22 professional bouts, that lone knockout defeat came at the hands of Savannah Marshall, all the way up there at 168, whereas here and now, she campaigns at 154. She's really hit her stride since that fight. She's fought about 6 times since her knockout loss to Savannah Marshall in April of 22. She's fought 6 times, won 6 times, 2 of which were against standout amateur Mary Spencer of Canada, who she outclassed. Thoroughly outclassed, both times. But will she outclass O'Shea Jones? Femke Hermans last saw action earlier this year at the beginning of it in January opposite the ring Esther Konecka, who she beat in a 6-rounder by way of a unanimous decision. So she's seen action in the last 12 months. There's no ring rust to shake off. The same applies to O'Shea Jones. She actually saw action 2 times this year, once in March, then again in July. Won her last 3 fights by way of knockout. Technical knockout. She knocked out Samantha Pill, Sonia Dreeling, and more recently Simone De Silva. Is she gonna knock out Femke Hermans? Femke's only ever been knocked out once by one of the more heavy-handed punchers in all of women's boxing, the powerful Savannah Marshall. I don't think, punch for punch, O'Shea Jones punches quite as hard as Savannah Marshall, and the way she gets girls out of there, how she knocks girls out, is by accumulation, throwing punches in bunches, waves upon waves of punches. So will that be enough to stop Femke? I want to say that I like O'Shea Jones's chances in this fight. I do think she can win a points decision. I'm not sure she stops Femke, but I am confident that she can beat her. How? O'Shea Jones has got good physical dimensions, very good physical dimensions for a junior middleweight. Enough that one day she might campaign as a middleweight, maybe a super middleweight. She's got speed too, and that's important. Speed! Demon speed that I think will allow her to beat Femke Hermans to the punch or combinations. She throws short punches, short hooks, short enough that they're hard to counter, especially if you're not as fast as O'Shea Jones, and she is fast, she is strong. I don't think this is gonna be like the Mary Spencer fight. In the Mary Spencer fights, Mary Spencer, a characteristically heavy-handed puncher, tries for very big punches, big single shots that can be countered, which is how Femke was able to beat her, as opposed to O'Shea, who throws shorter punches at a higher rate.
Faster.
And I think that will make it hard for Femke to get off the counter. She's durable and she's tough, plenty experienced, but I think she's gonna lose the IBF title. I think O'Shea Jones is set to become the new IBF champion, and she shouldn't stop there.
She won't.
If she beats Femke Hermans, the next champion to go after has gotta be Slovenia's Emma Kozin, because she's got 2 alphabet titles. It's conceivable that if O'Shea Jones plays her cards right, she could become this division's undisputed champion.
I have a high opinion of her.
Of her boxing and the aesthetic of her fights. She's no sugarfoot fighter, she's no outside fighter, she's a mauler, she likes the action. I like her chances against Femke later on this month, and we'll talk more about the fight as the fight date approaches. And super flyweight news, legend slayer Jesse Rodriguez wants Chocolatito Gonzalez and Naoya Inoue fights in the future. Jesse Bam Rodriguez labeled himself the legend slayer after he stopped Juan Francisco Estrada in June. Since his breakout win in 2022 against Nsraket Sorhunvisai, Rodriguez, 24, has also steamrolled through Carlos Cuadras and Sonny Edwards while picking up titles at flyweight and super flyweight. Rodriguez, 20-0 with 13 KOs, is boxing scene's number 5 pound-for-pound fighter. He will look to defend his WBC super flyweight title this weekend when he takes on the 42-4-1, 22 KOs, Pedro Guevara. Should the heavy favorite Rodriguez score the win at the Wells Fargo Center in Philadelphia on DAZN, he wants bigger fish to fry. After 3 separate spirited sparring sessions totaling 24 rounds against Roman Chocolatito Gonzalez, Rodriguez now wants a real fight against the 4th division champion he's long admired. It can happen. If I don't get the unification fights at super flyweight, Rodriguez told the boxing scene, a Chocolatito fight would interest the fight fans. It would probably have to be at super flyweight because I have the belt, so there is no reason to fight at 118 for no belt. It has to make sense. If the numbers ain't right, there really isn't any point. He's mentioned he would like to fight me. The feeling is mutual. I would love to go in there and share the ring with the legend. I believe that it would be fight of the year.
Used to hear stuff about this fight like, it might not happen because they're such good friends. But now what we're seeing is a mutual interest from Chocolatito and from Bam.
Though it's still said in some circles that Taken Promotions, who promote the both of these fighters in Japan, would prefer that they not fight each other. Though given that they wouldn't be the ones paying for the fight, they wouldn't be the ones footing the bill. Riyadh Season, Turkey Al Sheikh would be the ones paying to make it happen.
Does it really matter?
What Taken Promotions want. That Taken don't want these 2 guys to fight each other. If they're not the ones paying for it, does it really matter? Bam has previously stated that he never thought a fight against Choco would happen due to their mutual respect towards one another and their shared affiliation with Japanese promoter Akihiko Honda, the president of Taken. After losing 2 out of his last 3 fights to Juan Francisco Estrada over the last 3 years, Gonzalez, 37, returned to his native Nicaragua this past July and made his bantamweight debut to score a 10th round knockout over Robert Barreria. Before heading into the fight, Gonzalez was preparing Rodriguez for Estrada, a mutual opponent between them. That sparring session was amazing, said Rodriguez. It was back and forth every round. Each sparring session was fireworks. The sparring was harder than some of the fights I've had. Another superstar the San Antonio-based Southpaw slugger has his eyes on is Naoya Inoue, the current super bantamweight king. Rodriguez, trained and managed by Robert Garcia, was game when asked if he'd consider climbing up 2 divisions to clash against the 4-division champion Inoue. Yeah, of course, down the line. I think it could happen. It's just a matter of time before it happens, said Rodriguez. That's something we have to discuss with the team. It's a risky fight. To move up 2 weight classes against the natural 122-pounder, we would have to talk about it. Is Inoue a natural super bantamweight? A natural 122-pounder? Not really. That's his 4th division. Though by the time that Bam gets up there,
he may as well be a natural at the weight. He's as good as a natural super bantamweight because by then he'll be fully acclimated. I think he's still acclimating to that weight now.
He hasn't really been there all that long. What's it been, 2, 3 fights? The Stephen Fulton fight, the Marlon Tapales fight, the Luis Neri fight.
He's still getting there.
Can't forget about the TJ Doheny fight and the upcoming Sam Goodman fight, that by the time Bam fights this guy, if he does fight this guy,
Is he still gonna be there?
lots to think about. Now, Inoue recently inked a pact with Turkey LL Sheikh and Riyadh Season. Seems like a sponsorship kind of deal, endorsement kind of deal. Maybe that deal brings him to Saudi for an MJ Akhmadaliev fight, maybe.
What's supposed to be worth an estimated $15 to $19 million.
Now, in a very general sense, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money for a prize fighter. But more so, it's a lot of money for a super bantamweight. The guys at these weights, 115, 118, 122, they don't normally make that kind of money. Even the champions, Inoue.
He's the exception. That's the kind of celebrity he's amassed.
And this deal with Turkey might bring him to Saudi for an MJ Akhmadaliev fight. I mean, I could see that after the Sam Goodman fight. And maybe he stays at 122 long enough that he sees himself fight his countryman, Junto Nakatani. That fight is going to be worth a lot of scratch.
But will he be there long enough that he sees himself fight Bam Rodriguez?
That far down the line, anything can happen. I mean, what if he doesn't beat Junto? What then?
It's too far down the line. A Chocolatito fight pertains to the more immediate future, the not-so-distant future.
I'm not against the Chocolatito fight, but only if Bam can't get a unification match, because I think the super flyweight division needs a unification match a little more than it needs a Bam versus Choco fight. Super flyweight needs consolidation. It's a division that has stood divided for years now. At the risk of sounding like a broken record, if we're talking about a February fight date, in late February, newly crowned WBO champion of South Africa, Phumelela Kafu, should be available.
He might. A February fight date might be too quick a turnaround for the winner of Ioka versus Martinez, too.
But not too quick a turnaround for Phumelela Kafu, who was in action last month when he won the title. So if he recuperates all of this month and all of next month, he can start getting ready in January to fight in February. Bam has dubbed himself the Legend Slayer with good reason. He's taken out 3 of the 4 kings in the super flyweight division. Carlos Cuadras, Sorbrun Visai, more recently, Gallo Estrada.
Choco's the last one left.
So why did Choco all of a sudden become so receptive to a Bam Rodriguez fight? Being 37 years old towards the tail end of his career might have something to do with it. The Choco has actually done very well for himself and perhaps made more money than your average champion at super flyweight, your average 4-division champion, but he ain't making the kind of dough that, say, Inoue is making. I remember years ago when Inoue was campaigning as a super flyweight, and he tried to get a fight with Chocolatito, but Choco didn't like the money, and Inoue wasn't worth then what he's worth now.
So Choco didn't bite.
Didn't want to fight him. I think he chose to fight Carlos Cuadras because that was worth more money at the time.
And so Inoue moved on, went on to make more money than Choco was making then.
And so, I get why Choco's staying around at 37 years old, because there's more money flowing through these weights now than there ever was before, and he wants to make some of that money for himself.
Even if it means he has to fight Bam. In a fight that perhaps wasn't on the table before, but it's on the table now because of what it's worth, because of what kind of money he could make. The great motivator.
Money, as they say. Money talks, and bullshit.
Bullshit walks. Or it takes the BX-19.
See what happens. We'll see what shakes out after this weekend. And finally, ahead of tomorrow night's lightweight contest between Keyshawn Davis and Gustavo Lemus in Norfolk, Virginia, veteran boxing scribe Bernardo Osuna says, Keyshawn Davis made the weight limit of 134.2 pounds, but his opponent Gustavo Lemus blew the weight by an unacceptable 6.4, coming in at 141.4 pounds.
That's welterweight.
Our top-ranked boxing on ESPN Plus main event will go on, so long as Lemos doesn't weigh more than 148 at tomorrow morning's weigh-in.
Was he even trying to make the weight?
Keyshawn Davis is adamant that he still wants to fight Gustavo tomorrow night, despite Lemos coming in at 6.4 pounds overweight. I was happy. I'm the one getting paid more money now. The show must go on, and I think it will.
Yeah, I don't get the sense Keyshawn is going to let 6.4 pounds get in the way of his big homecoming fight, he is supremely confident going in.
Though is that brave or foolhardy of him, the danger is that with Gustavo having not made the contracted weight of 135 pounds, Keyshawn may have depleted himself, drained himself to get there, whereas Gustavo didn't. Thus, the night of, he may have more in the tank, more left in the tank than Keyshawn does. That's the danger.
That's the criticism many levy against Ryan Garcia for not having made the weight in the Devin Haney fight, that he blew it by 3 pounds.
So tonight of course you're going to be more durable than Devin. Of course you're going to be stronger and land with more authority because he had to kill himself to get to 140 and you didn't. You see, a lot of people spend time talking about the asterin, the banned substance that they found in his system, but that in and of itself, the weight and Ryan not making it, that had its role to play too. Similar situation here to where Gustavo blew it by a whopping 6 pounds. That's more than Ryan blew it.
2 times more.
When you miss the weight by that much, there's a question as to whether or not you were ever trying to make the weight, or did you know ahead of time? Was it planned that you weren't going to make it because you want to be stronger, as strong as you can be, the night of?
It's important to note that Gustavo's fight with Richardson Hitchens, it was at 140, not 135.
It's also important to note that when this fight was announced between Keyshawn and Gustavo, there were some levying criticism towards Keyshawn for quote-unquote bringing Gustavo down, bringing him down in weight, down to 135.
Discrediting the fight and discrediting the potential victory.
You can't discredit him now if he wins, because if he wins, he will have fought a fighter that didn't bother to make the weight. He will have fought a fighter that came in 6 pounds over. If he wins, you can't discredit Keyshawn.
He's not fighting a drain fighter.
I'm anticipating a fun fight with a fan-friendly aesthetic because Gustavo is a mid-range to inside fighter, and so is Keyshawn Davis. They both like to throw punches and bunches, combinations. They're both aggressive and spiteful.
This adds intrigue to it.
Even more, because it was already an intriguing fight from where I was sitting, that by all rights, Gustavo should be an unbeaten fighter. He sports a record of 29-1. It should be 30-0 because I felt he beat Richardson Hitchens.
He should have.
The winner of this fight, whether it's Keyshawn or Gustavo, is said to be moving on to a WBO title fight with the reigning WBO champion at this weight, Ukraine's own Denis Berenchik.
We haven't seen him since he won the vacant title in the Emmanuel Navarrete fight.
Whoever wins this one is in line to challenge him for the brown belt, more so if it's Keyshawn Davis, who Top Rank is so invested in. In truth, they're both top-ranked fighters, Gustavo and Keyshawn.
Remember that after the Hitchens-Richens fight, Top Rank signed Gustavo.
But they're not as invested in Gustavo as they are in Keyshawn. It's Keyshawn they're grooming, it's Keyshawn they're developing, it's Keyshawn that they want to be the next big thing. The standout amateur, the former Olympian, the potential champion.
Pound-for-pound star.
And so in my previous video, we talked about how Keyshawn Davis has expressed his enthusiasm, his desire to face the likes of Gervonta Davis, who he thinks he's ready for, after just 11 professional bouts. Some skepticism, but he wants it. If you think you're ready for a Gervonta Davis, then surely you're ready for a Gustavo Lemos, even if he is 6 pounds over.
The mob is fickle, brother.
He goes in there with Gustavo and looks less than spectacular. They're gonna criticize him for it, crucify him for it, for saying he's ready for Gervonta and not being able to dominate a Gustavo.
That's how they are. However unreasonable that might seem, they would hold him to his word.
But you know that he means business because he's going through with the fight. Even though Gustavo is 6 pounds over, he doesn't care. He wants to fight, and I want to see it.